Hi everybody, Bryan Norcross here with an afternoon update on Tropical Storm Eta. I'm very concerned right now what's happening in Broward County and especially what's going to happen overnight tonight. We have widespread flooding already and I don't see any indication it's going to get better. In fact, I think it will get worse overnight. Look at the radar estimated rain totals, and here you can see, look at this band here from Fort Lauderdale Beach, then arcing on across the Lauderhill area and over to Sunrise, and then another kind of band here across the southern part of the county, Davie, Cooper City, over to Southwest Ranches and on out into Pembroke Pines and between Weston or south of Weston. So both of those bands are producing rainfall amounts in the over 6-inch range. Look at this here. I can actually estimate here. Look at these rain amounts. So almost 7 inches there, just south of Lauderdale Lakes, on over to Sunrise. You see this whole band is more than 6 inches of rain in there. And we go down here, down into Davie. Look, we have 4, 5.5, 5 inches. You see it's a little bit less in that southern band, but still it's just excessive rainfall in Broward County. Now, let's look at the actual radar right now. And we can see that there's rain all over the place. And as I come out here, you can see what's going on. A little bit of good news for Broward is that the rain has shifted south to Miami-Dade in terms of the intense band that's coming in. Here's a band down here. There you see it coming into Dade right now, but still there's here's a batch of rain coming into Broward, very heavy rain in eastern Broward right now. Then it lets up a little bit and then another one coming, and there's just plenty of rain that's going to rotate up into Broward on top of the 6-7 inches of rain we've had in the central part of the county. Now the forecast is for rain totals in the 8 to 12 inch range. So we still, to get to even to the forecast, we still have more to come. Some areas to 18 inches. Now, when we get into that foot of rain, 10 inches, foot of rain, 15 inches of rain like that, then we're talking about pretty widespread flooding across both the western and eastern parts of Broward, because what's happening here in Miami-Dade and Broward is the wind is blowing in off the ocean. What that's doing is that's making the tide a little high by perhaps a foot or two. Then you can't get the water to drain out. So the water that drains into the canals can't go out to the ocean because the ocean and the wind are pushing the water in. So this is why where you get tremendous rains in tropical systems like this that have a strong onshore wind, that's why we have a flooding threat. So our immediate biggest concern is for flooding, especially in Broward. It's just beginning in Miami-Dade. We'll see what happens. This is a lot of rain to come. The forecast is still for the potential of rainfall amounts in that 8 to 12 inch range. Now let's look a little farther out here and we can see what's going on with the tropical storm. And look down to the south down here, and that's the, I don't want to call it an eye, the center of rotation is right down there on the edge of the radar range. As a matter of fact, I can extend the radar range out a little bit here, and there you can see the whole thing. So that's the center of the storm. Now, the storm freaked us out here late this morning, about 10, 11 o'clock, when the center just came off Cuba. Because when it came off Cuba, we could look at the Cuban radar, and we could see a small center with what looked like an eye wall trying to form. It wasn't supposed to do that, but that's what it looked like it was doing. And that was a much smaller center like this. So if that had been able to continue, we would have ended up with a hurricane almost certainly out of that. And the fear was that it was going to get even higher than 75 miles per hour. It turns out that feature dissipated. Now we have this large circulation, which is not going to produce winds as strong. They'll still be quite gusty, still can take down some tree limbs, still can be a problem, but they won't be as strong. This band right here looks like it's going to head into the upper Keys here as the center of the storm down in here. This is the center you'll track if you look at the cone. The center is going to kind of arc up like this. So this band here is going to arc up into the upper Keys, maybe even extreme South Dade down in the Florida City Homestead area, and that can have very gusty winds with it, even though it doesn't look as intense as the band right to the north of it. It looks like that will come up into central Miami-Dade County. That looks to us like the most intense weather we've had yet to come in, and that's, I'm just guessing, maybe an hour away as I'm recording this here at 5:15 in the afternoon. So the bottom line here is that it's these bands that we're most concerned about for the heavy rain in Broward and the gusty winds that will come with the band. That's where the wind is going to come. This is not a storm where we're going to track the center of the eye so much. There's nothing really much going on down in here. It's in these bands 1, 2, 3, and they actually continue up into the Treasure Coast and even farther on up the state. So when we look at the satellite, we can actually see what's going on with the storm here. And what it is that dry air has filtered in. Look at this tongue of dry air here that's wrapped up into it. And as a result of that, we've ended up with this center here. Look at the center of rotation there. You can see a lot of it is just very kind of low clouds. There on the edges of it, there's definitely wind in here. Not so much in the center part in here, but there's definitely wind in this part right here. And I see that my satellite is acting a little funky. So here, let me just refresh this and get a better looking satellite picture for you here. All right, so there you see that there's this big center of rotation here. And what it's doing is it's because the way the atmosphere is set up, there's actually kind of a wintertime type upper level low pressure system that's involved with this thing. So it's not a typical tropical system. So it has a comma shape to it. It's not a donut. It's more like a comma. And that comma is bringing this moisture up from the tropics, and it's producing these kind of bands up in here. And they're coming in, as we've seen, into Broward County. So the idea here is through this evening, this center is going to move somewhere like this over the Keys is the thinking, keeping these bands going. The biggest concern in terms of flooding looks like it's going to come in the overnight hours because that's when the tide will be highest. Again, why is the tide important? Because the tide is what's blocking any of the floodwaters from flowing out. So you have the tide plus the push of water caused by the storm, which is really storm surge, in that 1 to 2 foot range, maybe even a little higher as you get to the south. So in the overnight hours, we have the highest tide. That's when the flooding concern will be the greatest. My advice is, especially about your car, first of all, where you live really counts. And obviously you want to be aware of, if you live near the water in low-lying area, you want to be aware of flooding. But where you park your car, you don't want to wake up in the morning and have that car flooded. So put that car on higher ground at your earliest opportunity and get it away from any low-lying areas. Now, in the Keys, right now, the wind is coming in off of the Atlantic and starting in the lower Keys to come in from the North Florida Bay water coming up a little bit. But it's when we get a little closer in here that we're going to be a little concerned about that. If this thing stays big and broad like this, the storm surge threat in the Keys is going to stay minimal. They have a hurricane warning up in the Keys in case a system tries to redevelop tonight some kind of a smaller inner core. That's the only way we're going to get the hurricane for sustained winds. It doesn't look to be doing that, but there is some concern about that. That's why the hurricane warning is up. If it stays in this state of this big, broad circulation, we're not going to be worried about the wind so much. We're going to be thinking more about heavy rain and just a general push of water in from Florida Bay on this side and in from the Atlantic on this side as the storm moves on to the west of the Keys. So that's where we stand here in the late afternoon. I'll give you an update here later on this evening. And of course, we're on Local 10 with continuous coverage. So if you want to tune into TV, we'll see you there as well. All right. See you back soon.